Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. I never thought refusing a $2 million offer would put a target on my back. But the night my dream home exploded into ash and she arrived smiling through the smoke, I knew this wasn't just about land. It was war, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I never expected a fight over land to escalate into a full-on war. But from the moment I inherited my grandfather's property high up in the Colorado Rockies, something in my gut told me it wouldn't be simple. The land had been in our family for generations, 12 acres of rugged beauty, pine trees, and silence. It wasn't just dirt and trees to me, it was legacy. It was home. So when the HOA of Summit Pines Estates came knocking, I didn't even entertain the offer. They sent a letter first. Polite, professional, full of corporate fluff. We'd love to welcome your land into our expanding community. Attached is our generous offer of $2 million. I didn't even finish reading it. I threw it in the trash next to an empty pizza box and went back to my CAD plans for the house I was building. I wasn't just putting up a cabin. I was building my dream, solar-powered, off-grid capable with reinforced steel framing, rainwater collection, and panoramic mountain-facing windows. I didn't want to flip it. I wanted to die in it someday, preferably of old age with a cigar in my hand and a dog at my feet. Then Karen Devlin arrived. I didn't know her name that first day. I just saw the white Escalade kick up a cloud of gravel as it rolled up my driveway like it owned the place. She stepped out wearing hiking boots that had never touched mud, a beige scarf slung over a pastel blouse, and sunglasses that probably cost more than my truck. I paused the nail gun and walked over, wiping my hands on my jeans. "You must be Brent," she smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Karen Devlin. I'm president of the Summit Pines HOA," I nodded. "Not a member." She laughed like I had just made a cute joke. "Oh, of course. But you know, we're all neighbors here in the greater Summit Pines community. Just wanted to introduce myself." "Bring a little welcome basket." She handed me a bag filled with overpriced trail mix, soy candles, and a glossy brochure titled Summit Pines Vision 2030. "You're welcome to visit," I said. "But just to be clear, this property isn't part of any HOA. It never has been. My grandfather made sure of that when he refused to sell back in the 80s. Her smile twitched. "Right. Yes. A bit of a holdout, I suppose. No offense, but we call that independent." That was the first visit. There were 4 more over the next 6 months, each one colder than the last. She brought a lawyer on the second trip. On the third, she casually mentioned that the HOA had rights of interest in surrounding parcels. The fourth time, she stared at the concrete foundation I had just poured and muttered, "Shame to pour that much money into something that'll become unusable." I started documenting everything. I installed a full perimeter camera system, motion sensor lights, night vision, backup battery, everything. But I also did something even I forgot about until much later. I paid a technician to install 2 micro cameras in the pine trees near the rear slope. No one knew about those, not even me, half the time. Construction continued. Frame, roof, wiring, walls. My crew was solid. The whole build took just under 9 months. By late spring, we were doing finish work, cabinets, lighting, floor treatments. The house was everything I wanted and more. On a cool Monday morning, I stood out on the back deck, coffee in hand, admiring the view. Below me were miles of evergreen forests, peaks dusted with snow, a hawk gliding lazy circles over the valley. Behind me was my house, my fortress. And not once during the build did I bend to Karen or her damn HOA. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. That evening, I got a voicemail from Karen. Her tone was sugar and arsenic. "Brent, I hope the construction's going well. Just wanted to remind you that actions have consequences. If you ever change your mind, we're still prepared to make a generous offer before things get complicated." I didn't return the call. That was my last quiet night. The smell of smoke woke me up. Not fire, diesel, exhaust, earth being torn open. I shot upright in my cot, still half-dressed from the night before, and for a few split seconds my brain struggled to catch up. I grabbed my boots and stumbled outside. It was gone. Not missing a window, gone. Not someone broke in, gone. The house, my house, was a goddamn crater. Twisted steel, shattered trusses, piles of crushed lumber, splintered beams, glass glittering like ice in the dirt. It looked like a bomb had hit it. But there were no sirens, no smoke, no flames, just silence. A silence so complete it rang in my ears. My legs buckled and I dropped to my knees on the gravel. I stared at the ruins like a man watching his own grave being dug. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think. Then instinct kicked in. I scrambled for my phone and pulled up the camera app. Nothing. Every camera on the house system was offline. No feeds, no recordings, just a generic device disconnected screen. I tried the security panel app. Last event, system disabled at 3:06 a.m. My stomach twisted. I switched to the off-site backup server. Gone. Wiped clean. No motion alerts, no footage, no alarm. I had a redundancy system that could survive lightning strikes, and someone had just erased it like a chalkboard. And that's when the black Jeep pulled up. Big, shiny, with smoked windows. It crunched to a stop about 30 feet away. The door opened, and out stepped Karen Devlin. She was in heels this time. Heels. On gravel. She looked around like she'd just arrived at an art exhibit she didn't care for. "Well," she said, slowly stepping toward me, "that's unexpected." I didn't answer. I couldn't. She scanned the wreckage, then looked back at me with a rehearsed mixture of concern and smugness. "Brent, did you change your mind about the build and decide to clear the lot?" Honestly, probably a wise move. This area's not exactly viable long-term. Too much slope, liability issues, erosion, dangerous wildlife. She was pretending, standing there with her hands folded, acting like she hadn't just flattened my future. "What the hell did you do?" I managed. My voice sounded hollow in my throat. Karen tilted her head. "Excuse me? My house is gone, and you're here within 10 minutes of it happening. What did you do, Karen?" Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly, just for a blink. Then her expression softened again into mock sympathy. "Brent, if something happened here, I had nothing to do with it. Maybe the contractor made a mistake. Demolitions happen all the time when permits aren't in order." I took a step toward her. "You threatening me all year, calling me at night, showing up with your thugs. And now my house is rubble and you're playing dumb." She sighed. "I tried to help you, Brent. I really did. I told you this land wasn't a good fit for independence. You chose the hard way." I clenched my fists. "You're going to jail for this." Karen smiled, and that smile chilled me to the core. 2 doors on the Jeep opened simultaneously. 2 large men stepped out, suits, sunglasses, matching shaved heads. The cliché wasn't lost on me. These guys were the kind of people who looked like they'd failed Secret Service tryouts because they enjoyed the job too much. Before I could react, they were on me. One twisted my right arm behind my back. The other slammed a palm into my chest and forced me to the ground. My knees hit gravel. The wind left my lungs. Karen knelt beside me, her perfume too sweet and suffocating. "Brent," she said, voice low, cold, flat. "Let me be clear. You are done. No cameras, no witnesses, no proof. You're going to sign a contract today. We'll pay you $500,000. You'll walk away. You'll say the house was a mistake. You'll disappear, or you can keep resisting, and I'll leave your remains somewhere near the ravine and call it a bear attack. Your choice." A silver case was set down in front of me. Bundles of cash, stacked and neat. Another man, lawyer I guessed, stepped forward and placed a manila envelope and a pen on top. I was breathing hard, sweating cold. My shoulders ached. My face was inches from the dirt. I couldn't believe what was happening, and yet I had no doubt it was real. "I'm not signing shit while being held like this," I growled through clenched teeth. Karen looked up. "Let him go." The grip loosened, just slightly. And in that fraction of a second, I acted. I pushed backward with my shoulder, catching one of the goons off balance. I spun, elbowed the other in the ribs, and as they scrambled, I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't scream. I ran like my life depended on it, because it did. I didn't know how far I ran. I didn't know how long either. It could have been 30 minutes. Could have been 3 hours. All I knew was that my legs burned, my lungs were on fire, and I wasn't stopping. Not until I was somewhere Karen Devlin and her private goon squad couldn't find me. The forest was thick, uneven. Sharp branches clawed at my arms. Rocks tore at my boots. I tripped once, then twice, slamming my shoulder into a tree trunk hard enough to see sparks. But I kept going. The sun was rising higher, and with every step, adrenaline gave way to nausea. My hands shook. My ears rang. Eventually, I saw a break in the trees and stumbled out onto a gravel road. My clothes were soaked through. My face was crusted with sweat and blood. A pickup truck passed by without slowing. I must have looked like a lunatic. Hell, I felt like one. Another mile down the road, I saw it. A rusted-out diner sitting alone like an afterthought. A faded red sign read Lacey's Grill. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a minivan and a dusty Crown Vic. I forced myself inside. The bell above the door jingled. A waitress behind the counter, gray ponytail, lime green apron, looked up, startled. She opened her mouth to say something, then shut it when she got a good look at me. "I need a phone," I rasped, leaning against the counter. "Please, it's an emergency." She hesitated. "Are you hurt? You need an ambulance?" "No cops," I said quickly. "Please, just a phone." She reached below the counter and handed me a beat-up cordless. "Line's clean," she muttered, eyeing me like I might collapse. I dialed one number. It rang twice. "Yeah?" came the voice on the other end. Gruff. No nonsense. "Andy," I croaked. "It's Brent." A beat of silence. "Jesus Christ, you okay?" "Number I need you. I need help. I'm at a diner. Lacey's Grill, off Route 11. They destroyed my house. They tried to force me to sign papers. They had guys, big guys, and they were gonna—" My voice cracked. "Please, man, I didn't know who else." "I'm already moving," Andy said. "Don't talk to anyone else. Don't leave that diner. I'll be there in under an hour. Sit tight." I hung up. My knees finally gave out. I slid to the floor beside the counter and buried my face in my arms. Andy Morales, former Marine, current FBI agent, Violent Crimes Division. We served together in the Air Force back in the day, and he owed me more than one favor. But this wasn't about favors now. This was survival. I must have sat there for 20 minutes before the bell rang again. Two men walked in wearing crisp uniforms. Sheriff's Department. They scanned the room like they were expecting trouble. One of them, tall, heavyset, mid-40s, pointed at me. "Brent Wallace?" he asked, hand resting casually on his belt. I didn't answer right away. "We've had reports you were involved in an incident near Summit Pines. Need you to come with us." I stood slowly. "What incident?" The second officer, younger and edgier, moved closer. "You match the description of a suspect who fled a crime scene. We need you to come answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet. I want to speak to my attorney." The younger one didn't like that. "You can do that at the station." He grabbed my arm. "Hey!" the waitress snapped. "He hasn't done anything. He just got here." I said, "Let go." I growled, pulling back. That's when they snapped. In a flash, I was slammed face first against the counter. Cold metal clamped around my wrists. I shouted. Customers started yelling. One lady pulled out her phone to record. "You're under arrest," the older cop said, as if this were routine, resisting obstruction trespassing. "On what property?" I spat. "I own that goddamn land." They didn't answer, just started dragging me toward the door. Then headlights lit up the windows. A black SUV skidded into the parking lot. Doors flew open. 3 men in dark suits jumped out. Andy was first through the door, flashing a badge so fast it looked like a weapon. "Federal agent," he barked. "Let him go. Now." The deputies froze mid-step. "This man is in our protective custody. You just laid hands on a federal witness in an open case. Congratulations. That's obstruction, excessive force, and unlawful detention." One of the cops stammered. "We were told he's wanted. We got a call." "From who?" "Karen Devlin? Do you know who the hell you just assaulted?" Andy stormed over, ripped the cuffs off me, and shoved both deputies back. Then he turned to me and said, "You okay?" I nodded, barely. He looked at the waitress. "You got cameras?" She nodded. "Whole place." "Good. We'll need the footage." He turned back to the cops. "You're done." 2 more black vehicles pulled in. Andy waved the others over. Within 5 minutes, both sheriff's deputies were cuffed, seated in their own car, faces blank. One of them asked if he could call his captain. Andy told him, "You'll get 1 phone call from holding. Make it count." I was still shaking when Andy walked me to his vehicle. "You're not just dealing with a greedy HOA," he said. "This is criminal conspiracy, civil rights violations, maybe even racketeering." I looked at him. "I've got nothing, no footage, no witnesses. They wiped it all." Andy smiled grimly. "We'll see about that." Andy drove in silence for a while, letting me catch my breath. The SUV moved like a tank, smooth, silent, armored. We were heading west, away from Summit Pines, deeper into the mountains. I glanced back at the 2 black vehicles following us, part of the same federal convoy. Andy wasn't taking any chances. Eventually, he pulled off the main road onto a dirt trail marked with a U.S. Forest Service sign, the kind of road tourists skip and locals don't advertise. It twisted through thick pine until we came to an old ranger station, decommissioned, fenced, quiet. A perfect temporary safe house. Inside, it smelled like cedar and stale coffee. Andy had a command laptop set up on a folding table, a portable generator humming nearby, and a large case marked Evidence Collection Federal Property bolted to the wall. He handed me a bottle of water, then locked the door behind us. "Talk," he said, sitting across from me. "Everything, start to finish." I told him everything I hadn't already said on the phone. About Karen, the threats, the harassment, the fake permits, the sudden destruction of my house, the goons, the money, the manila envelope. Andy's expression darkened with each detail. He took notes without interrupting, except to ask for dates, times, names. When I mentioned the wiped cameras and backup drive, he raised an eyebrow. "You said you had perimeter cams. Any off-grid ones?" "2, I said slowly. "Pine tree mounts. Hidden. Wired into a separate microdrive. Solar-powered. I almost forgot they existed." "Do they transmit or store?" "Store. Independent. No signal. Local-only storage on encrypted SDs." He grinned for the first time. "Then there's a chance." We drove back out 30 minutes later in an unmarked vehicle. Andy had swapped plates and ditched the suit. He was in a Carhartt jacket and jeans, blending in with every other mountain dweller for 50 miles. We took a long way around, parking a mile out from my property and hiking in from the East Ridge, avoiding the main road. Karen's people were nowhere in sight, but my house still looked like something out of a war zone. Charred beams, collapsed studs, scorched concrete foundation. I climbed the ridge while Andy kept watch, counting the trees and matching the path in my head. The pine was still there, hidden behind a natural outcropping, just like I remembered. I reached into the hollowed knot in the trunk, and there it was. A tiny gray housing the size of a deck of cards. Inside, a waterproof drive, battery still intact. I handed it to Andy without a word. We repeated the process for the second camera near the back slope. Back at the ranger station, Andy inserted both microdrives into a forensic dock, bypassing normal boot processes. The screen lit up. We watched in silence. There they were. At 3:06 a.m., a convoy of vehicles crept onto my property, one black truck with no markings. Then another. 4 men, 2 carrying shaped charges, advanced toward the house's foundation. Another set up a directional signal jammer aimed directly at the cabin. Andy leaned forward. "Professional, real equipment. This wasn't amateurs." At 3:11 a.m., the charges went off. The house came down like a sandcastle kicked by a boot. Not a single alarm triggered. No lights, no camera flash, just total erasure. Then Karen arrived. The timestamp was 3:27 a.m. She walked through the wreckage in heels and a windbreaker, accompanied by 2 men with headsets and a clipboard. They laughed. She pointed at the debris and made a sweeping gesture, like a queen inspecting a battlefield. Andy froze the frame. "That's conspiracy," he muttered. "And it's recorded." "Jesus, Brent, this is gold. What do we do with it?" He didn't answer immediately, just stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then he picked up his phone and started calling. Over the next few hours, the cabin turned into a war room. 2 more agents arrived, a federal tech team, forensics. They took everything, drives, my laptop, even Karen's voicemail recordings from my phone. Everything was cataloged. At sunset, Andy handed me a burner phone and said, "You're off the grid now. Don't answer calls unless it's me or the number on the card. Don't go back to the property. Don't talk to anyone. We're about to light a match under these people, and when it goes off, it'll burn half that HOA board to the ground." I nodded slowly. "What about Karen? She doesn't know we have the footage. Let her keep talking." Andy paused, then added, "And if she comes near you again, don't run. Just press record." I spent the next 3 days inside that ranger station, surrounded by laptops, radio chatter, and federal agents who didn't smile much. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my house exploding again. Saw Karen's smug face lit up by the flames. Saw the manila envelope, the money, the pen. Andy kept me updated in fragments. "We're tracing the contractors." A judge approved a sealed subpoena. Her phone pinged at 3:26 a.m. He never stopped moving, never looked uncertain. But I could tell this case was getting bigger than either of us expected. On the 4th morning, he finally said it out loud. "She's not just a lunatic with HOA power," he said, over instant oatmeal. Karen Devlin's name is tied to 4 different LLCs, 3 PAC donations, and 2 shell contractors that don't even have real staff. This is organized. I think she's part of something way nastier than suburban politics. That same afternoon, a breakthrough landed like a bombshell. One of the agents, Marcus, stormed into the station holding a laptop like it was radioactive. "You need to see this," he said. The screen displayed a live server dashboard, private, hidden behind 3 VPN layers, buried on a domain only accessible with a rotating password. One of Karen's construction firms had been uploading reports, daily logs, payment slips, property maps, even intercepted emails between HOA members and a shadowy operations lead. "Look at this one," Marcus said, opening an email. The message read, "Subject, Brent Wallace. Solution approved. No further resistance expected post-demo. Contract buyout offer prepared. Ensure full blackout during operation. Disappear cleanup crew by 0600. I stared at the screen, numb. "They planned it all," I whispered. Andy nodded grimly. "And someone higher up greenlit it." We spent the next 24 hours assembling the federal case. Karen wasn't just running the HOA. She was laundering money through HOA funds, bribing local inspectors, and using demolitions to force land transfers. My cabin was just one of many problem properties that resisted absorption into their master plan. At sunrise, Andy made the call. "We move tonight." But I couldn't sit still. "Let me come," I said. "I want to see her face when it drops." Andy frowned. "Not safe. If she senses anything off, she'll run." "Then let her look me in the eye one last time before the cuffs go on." He didn't answer right away, then finally gave a single nod. That night, I wore clean clothes, shaved, and put on the same denim jacket I wore the day I bought the cabin. It felt like armor. We arrived at the Summit Pines HOA headquarters at 7:58 p.m., a sleek building that looked more like a bank than a neighborhood office. Lights were on inside. Karen's car was in the front, spotless as ever. Andy went in through the side with his team. I walked in the front door. Karen was there in the lobby, holding a glass of white wine, laughing with 2 board members. She turned and saw me. Her smile vanished like a switch had been flipped. "Well," she said, ice forming in her voice, "you're bold. I'll give you that." "Bold enough to survive what you did to me," I said quietly. "And smart enough to not come alone." She blinked. Then the side doors burst open. 8 agents flooded in, weapons drawn but pointed down. Karen dropped her wine. It shattered on the tile. "You are under arrest for conspiracy, destruction of property, racketeering, attempted coercion, and obstruction of justice." One of the agents read as he cuffed her. "You have the right to remain silent." One of the board members tried to slip away. Andy cut him off at the elevator and threw him face first into the wall. Karen looked at me as they pulled her away. "This isn't over, Brent," she hissed. "You don't know who I work for." "Neither do you," I said. "But they know who you are now." The agents led them out one by one. The HOA headquarters was turned upside down within the hour. Laptops were seized, paperwork confiscated. Every shred of evidence was cataloged and bagged. By midnight, the place was empty. Andy stood with me in the parking lot looking up at the stars. "That was satisfying," he admitted, "but we're not done. There's still layers to this thing." I nodded slowly. "Then let's keep digging." Karen's arrest hit the town like a thunderclap. By sunrise, local news outlets were circling the Summit Pines development like buzzards. The headlines wrote themselves, "HOA President Arrested in Federal Racketeering Probe. Luxury Community Tied to Demolition for Profit Scheme." Her mugshot went viral in under 4 hours. Hair frazzled, eyes wild, still wearing her precious pearl earrings. The same ones she wore the night she tried to buy me off. But Andy was right. This wasn't over. By midday, 2 county inspectors had turned themselves in, cutting deals to avoid indictment. They admitted they'd signed off on fake permits and ignored safety violations in exchange for monthly consulting fees that traced back to one of Karen's shell LLCs. Andy's team worked around the clock. The data pulled from the HOA's servers unveiled a web of corruption that went deeper than we expected. Dozens of properties, false fines, fabricated violations, families who'd been forced out under threats or fraudulent liens. And behind it all, Karen and her mysterious operations lead. That's where things got weird. We traced the IP addresses used for the encrypted communications, nothing local, all routed through servers in Virginia, then Singapore, then Arizona. The email signatures were scrubbed. Even the domain registrars were fake. Andy called in favors from his old cybercrimes unit. They cracked open the metadata of one buried attachment, and it led us to a quiet office suite in Tempe, Arizona, registered to a company called Miravector Holdings. It looked like a logistics firm on paper. But digging deeper, we discovered it was a front for a real estate investment trust that had quietly acquired hundreds of parcels across the Southwest, many through HOA-led foreclosures, forced buyouts, or eminent domain deals. Miravector was laundering the properties through shell buyers and flipping them to developers tied to political donors. Karen wasn't the architect, Andy muttered as he stared at the whiteboard in our safe house. She was just the executioner. 3 days after the arrests, I was taken to a secure facility in Denver for a debrief with DOJ prosecutors. The conference room was like a war room. Maps, names, photos, financial trails pinned across the walls. They asked me to recount everything again, this time for the record. I did, carefully, methodically. They asked if I'd be willing to testify. I'll testify in front of Congress if it means this never happens to another person, I told them. They liked that. I was placed under federal protection, new phone, new address, and for now, no return to my land. Too hot. The media kept circling like wolves, but I stayed out of sight. Andy said they wanted to control the narrative until the indictments were filed. Then, late one night, Andy knocked on the safe house door. He looked grim. "We found something else," he said. "Karen's gone quiet in holding, not talking. But someone paid her bail." "What?" I shot up. "She's out?" "Not for long," he said. "Her charges were federal, but the bail was posted through a back channel, private surety bond, anonymous. She walked out 2 hours ago, and then disappeared." I stared at him, stunned. "They'll come after me," I said. "She'll come after me." Andy nodded. "We've already requested her GPS monitor and passport flag, but whoever's backing her has deep pockets. This just escalated." The next morning, I got proof of that. An unmarked envelope was slid under the safe house door. Inside, a single Polaroid photo of me, taken through the diner window the morning I'd called Andy for help. On the back, one sentence was written in block letters. "Should have taken the money." The photo rattled me more than I cared to admit. Someone had been close enough to snap a Polaroid and deliver it to a secure location, bypassing 2 federal layers of surveillance. That wasn't intimidation. That was a message, a taunt, a warning. Andy reacted fast. Within an hour, the safe house was evacuated. I was relocated to a black site in New Mexico, used for witness protection and off-grid investigations. It looked like an abandoned mining shack from the outside, but inside was another world. Biometric locks, reinforced steel, armed agents working in silence. "You're not safe until we finish this," Andy told me, voice low, steady. "And Karen's not acting alone." They were right. That evening, we got word that another property, this time in Utah, had been demolished in the same style as mine. Owner gone on vacation, permits forged, HOA involvement suspected, the pattern matched. Only this time, there were no survivors. A retired couple had been inside the house when it was brought down. The blast killed both. The news hit me like a brick. Karen was escalating, or whoever was controlling her was. We weren't just dealing with fraud and intimidation anymore. We were looking at murder. The DOJ team moved to classify the case under RICO and domestic terrorism statutes. Now the full weight of the federal government was being thrown into the ring. Marshals, forensics, intelligence analysts. We had a timeline, a network, and now, bodies. Andy brought me into the strategy sessions as a consultant. No more passive witness. I was involved now. I had seen their faces. I had lived through their tactics. Together, we built a map. The nodes were Karen's known associates, HOA board members, shell company directors, contractors with sealed military records. One name came up again and again, Alan Wexler, a former real estate lobbyist turned private acquisitions broker, connected to Miravector, no paper trail, no verified address, but plenty of whispers. He was known as the cleaner in some of the internal emails. The one who stepped in when deals went sideways. I felt it in my gut. He was the one who bailed Karen out. Andy arranged a sting. Using DOJ assets, they faked an upscale real estate summit in Phoenix, leaked whispers that Brent Wallace, the holdout survivor, was preparing to speak out publicly about HOA corruption. It worked. 3 days later, Wexler's people reached out. A man in a sleek suit showed up at the fake conference, using a fake name, but the forensics matched. His burner phone pinged a Miravector tower, and the voice, partially recorded, matched a voicemail pulled from Karen's laptop weeks earlier. He wasn't just watching. He was trying to clean up. They let him walk. For now. But they bugged his car, tracked his accounts, and followed him straight to a gated compound in Scottsdale with more cameras than the Pentagon. Meanwhile, I received a second message. This one was digital, an encrypted email, no return address, with a video attached. It opened on Karen, pre-recorded, same windbreaker, her tone flat. "Brent," she said, "you were never supposed to survive. You were an outlier, a mistake. We gave you a chance. You refused. Don't think this ends with me." She leaned forward. "There are 10 more like me, maybe 20. Some run HOAs, some sit on county boards, some wear badges. You're poking something older and deeper than you understand. Go back to your mountain if it's still there, or disappear again, because next time there won't be a warning." Then static. The room went quiet as we played it a second time. Andy's team analyzed the background, matched the lighting, even traced the audio hum. "She didn't record this recently," Andy muttered. "She recorded it the night before her arrest. She knew this was coming. She planned for it." We realized something chilling. Karen was expendable, a mouthpiece, a test. And her fall wasn't the end. It was the start of something bigger. We hadn't cracked the system. We had just knocked on its front door. I didn't sleep that night. Karen's words echoed like a toxin behind my eyes. 10 more like me. Some wear badges. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was confirmation. And once you hear the truth, you can't unhear it. The next morning, Andy pulled me into the strategy room. The mood had shifted. Tighter, more controlled. The sting on Wexler had produced gold, surveillance footage, email pings, a conversation recorded via parabolic mic. In one segment, Wexler was caught referencing neutralizing the Wallace situation permanently. That was me. "I'm done hiding," I told Andy. "You want me to bait them? I'll do it, but I'm not running anymore." He didn't argue. He just nodded. The DOJ gave us a green light for a controlled operation. I would appear live via a federal protected media outlet, giving an exclusive interview about the demolition attempt, the corruption inside HOAs, and my intention to name names. All of it was coordinated. A trap, one last lure. The segment went live that evening. I sat in a dark studio, face lit from the side, identity partially obscured, voice digitally modified. I spoke calmly, methodically, with just enough detail to sound credible and just enough fury to make it personal. "I won't be silenced," I said into the camera. And I'm not the only one. The trap worked. Within 12 hours, someone broke into a secondary DOJ server. They tried to wipe our files, but the entire thing was fake. A honeypot. We traced the attack back through 5 proxies. And the final link. A private data center in Flagstaff, owned by an affiliate of Miravector Holdings. Warrants flew. By nightfall, SWAT teams surrounded the data center and a Scottsdale compound tied to Wexler. Arrests followed. Servers were seized. One man tried to escape with a USB drive duct taped to his leg. Another tried to destroy a wall safe with a sledgehammer. Too late. Inside the compound safe, we found a black notebook, handwritten. Inside were lists, addresses, code names, financial flows, HOA zones marked in red, and next to one entry, Wallace, terminated attempt failed, relocation planned, pending budget approval. Budget. As if murdering me was just a line item. The notebook was real, and so was the conspiracy. Over the following week, indictments rained down. Karen, rearrested on federal conspiracy charges, was denied bail this time. Wexler was named in a 32-page criminal complaint. 7 other HOA officials across 3 states were taken into custody. 3 had tried to flee the country. The DOJ held a press conference in D.C. I watched it from a hidden location, jaw clenched. An unprecedented conspiracy, the Attorney General said. Private entities weaponizing homeowners associations as tools of coercion, fraud, and displacement. Let this case be a warning. They didn't say my name, but I saw my cabin on the screen behind them, what remained of it. And that was enough. I returned to Colorado 2 weeks later. The road had been cleared. The air was sharp with pine and silence. When I stepped onto what was left of my land, I found a single stake in the ground stuck near the ashes. On it, a red tag. Property pending investigation. The irony made me laugh out loud. Andy called that night. He sounded different. Tired. "It's not over, Brent," he said. You hit something big. You set off a chain reaction, but don't think they're done. I don't, I told him, but I also wasn't afraid anymore. They took my house. They tried to take my life, but they couldn't erase the truth, and they sure as hell couldn't shut me up. The snow melted late that year. When I returned to the ruins of my cabin in early spring, I found tufts of green pushing through the soot. Grass, stubborn and alive, reclaiming what the fire tried to erase. I stood there a long time, boots in ash, hands in my coat pockets, staring at the empty frame of what used to be my world. Then I got to work. The DOJ offered restitution, compensation, even witness relocation again if I wanted it. I declined. What they couldn't give me back was time, memory, or my home, but they could get the hell out of my way while I rebuilt it. And they did. The entire site had been declared free of legal encumbrances. The Summit Pines HOA, once Karen's empire, had collapsed under federal seizure, their bank accounts frozen, their charter revoked. Even the sign at the gated entrance had been removed, now just metal poles rusting in the wind. I used their money to lay a new foundation. Contractors came in under aliases. Permits issued directly from state inspectors. No third parties. No intermediaries. I watched every damn nail go into the wood myself. This time, I built it stronger. Fireproof materials, reinforced steel core, security features you'd find on embassies. The kind of house that says, you'll try once, not twice. And then, I wrote. It started with a long-form statement, published anonymously but verified, detailing the entire chain of events. The forged documents, the demolitions, the front companies, the web of corruption. It was picked up by journalists from ProPublica, then The Atlantic, then 60 Minutes. The HOA model came under national scrutiny. County boards across the U.S. were forced to re-audit their code enforcement partnerships. Karen Devlin became the face of something much bigger than herself. She was sentenced in federal court to 21 years without parole. Racketeering, conspiracy, obstruction, endangerment, and attempted homicide. Wexler received 32 years. 4 others flipped and took plea deals. The Miravector umbrella collapsed under the weight of civil RICO suits and criminal prosecution. A congressional hearing was scheduled, and they wanted me. I flew to D.C., under escort, sat down under the lights of a televised chamber, and told my story. I told them about the first letter, the white Escalade, the fake permits, the blast, the voices behind the curtain. The real estate vultures pretending to be public servants. I told them what it's like to have someone try to erase you off a map, and what it feels like to stand up and say no. There was silence after I finished, not out of indifference, but because everyone in that room knew. I wasn't the only one. When I stepped out of the Capitol, a man approached me, middle-aged, flannel shirt, work boots, said he owned 20 acres in Nevada. He'd seen signs, pressure from the local HOA, threats, emails. They offered to buy me out last week, he said. Now I know what to look for, thanks to you. I shook his hand. Don't let them scare you. I won't, he said. Not anymore. Back in Colorado, I settled into the new house. The mountains were the same. The air a little crisper, the silence more sacred. I spent the mornings splitting wood and the evenings reading cases from other states. The DOJ had formed a new division focused on HOA corruption nationwide. Andy was running it. He called sometimes. There's another case in Oregon, he told me once. You'd be surprised how familiar it sounds. I wouldn't, I said, but I hope they're ready, because I wasn't going anywhere. Summer came fast that year. By June, the ridge above my cabin was dusted with wildflowers, and the trees stood taller, as if time itself was trying to compensate for what had been lost. I woke early every morning, not out of fear anymore, but out of instinct, habit, purpose. The house was quiet but alive. The new frame didn't creak like the old one did, but it held the same warmth, same fireplace, same view from the porch, same echo of wind through the pines, different bones, same soul. One morning, I got a package. No return address, no markings, just a small wooden box sealed tight. I opened it on the porch with my coffee in hand. Inside was a single brass key. Attached to it, a note, typed anonymous. For the next one who says no. No signature, no explanation, just that. I stared at it for a long while. Who sent it? Someone from the DOJ? A former victim? Or maybe someone still inside the system, waiting for the right moment to step out of the shadows? Whoever it was, they understood something I'd only begun to grasp myself. This wasn't just my story. It was the first of many. The fallout from the hearings continued. Over 100 HOAs were formally audited across 10 states. At least 30 were dissolved. Legislators introduced new bills limiting HOA enforcement powers, capping fines, and requiring transparency in board elections. It was far from perfect, but it was a start. People started to write me. Survivors, fighters, folks who'd been crushed by systems that were never supposed to have power in the first place. Some wanted advice. Some just wanted to be heard. I responded to every single one because I knew what silence felt like. Karen would never see the outside of a prison again. Last I heard, she'd been transferred to a federal facility in Illinois after an altercation with another inmate. Wexler was under 24-hour watch in a supermax. His lawyers kept filing appeals. None were granted. And Summit Pines, gone. The land was auctioned off to the county and reclassified as a conservation area. No houses, no gates, just trees and wind and memory. Andy visited once in late August. We grilled steaks and sat under the stars, watching satellites crawl across the sky like slow silver insects. "You ever think about leaving all this behind?" he asked me. I shook my head. I think about what would have happened if I had. He didn't say anything after that. He didn't have to. Later that night, I took the brass key out of its box and hung it on a nail beside my front door. It wasn't mine to use, but maybe someday someone else would need it. Someone standing at the edge of a line they didn't choose to cross, but damn sure weren't going to retreat from either. And when that day came, they'd know one thing. They weren't alone. Not anymore.